Hi everyone, I'm Lisa and I'm going to take you today for a Pilates class for over 55s or maybe anyone who has any injuries. We're going to do some gentle stretching and I'll offer modifications as we go as well. So to start, you just need the space of a mat. If you don't have a mat, just about this much space, and if you do have a mat, just lay it out, have a little bit of room around the mat, but this much space is plenty. So we're going to turn, pop your feet so you just have about a tennis ball distance between your feet, between your knees. You can take your hands to your shins and then slowly start to lower yourself down onto your mat. Rest your head down. Now, if you find once you're lying down that your head's really uncomfortable, maybe your head's leaning back, you could prop a little cushion or a hoodie underneath your head. That'll give your head and neck a little bit more support. So if you need to do that, just pop it underneath your head now for all our lying down work. Bring your heels a little closer towards your bum. Still make sure you only have the tennis ball distance between your knees and your feet. And we're just going to pop our hands onto our hip bones. Roll your shoulders back and open out your chest. And take a lovely big inhale through the nose and exhale through the mouth. Let your chest relax and let your shoulders relax. And just let your body melt down into the mat a little bit. Now what we're going to do, I'm going to roll my hip bones forward towards my pubic bone and I'm going to create a big space in my low back. Then I'm going to roll my hips back towards my belly button and plant my back onto the mat. Then again, rolling forward, creating that arch in your back, and then rolling back, pinning your back onto the mat. And all you're doing is tilting the pelvis forward and tilting the pelvis back. And these are called our pelvic tilts. And you do these a lot in Pilates classes. And what we're doing it for is to find a place where our spine, our pelvis is neutral. So you just rock forward, rock back, and feel the difference between being really rocked forward and really pinned back. Now once you feel the difference between those two positions, find somewhere between the two that's balanced. So your back's not completely pinned, it's not completely arched. You should just be able to fit your fingers into your low back. Or if you imagined you had some blueberries in your low back, the blueberries won't have space to roll around, but they won't be squished either. Now take your hands back onto your hip bones. This time we're going to lift one hip up, drop the other hip down. So my right hip goes up, my left hip drops down. Then I'm going to drop my right hip down, lift my left hip up. And I'm going to move between these two. Now if you keep your hands on your hips, you should feel your hip bones, one lifting, one dropping. If you feel one bum cheek lower down towards the mat as the other bum cheek lifts up, if you're having difficulty feeling the difference between the two positions, that might help. Again, we're going to find a place now between these two positions that's balanced. So I want my pelvis to be balanced left to right and front to back. If I had a bowl of soup that was full to the brim and it was there in the center of my pelvis, somewhere around my belly button, I don't want that bowl of soup to spill. It's going to be completely still, so I'm completely balanced here. Now from there, I'm just going to place my hands down by my hips. I'm going to take a lovely big inhale through the nose and I'm going to roll my hips towards my belly button. Back goes down onto the mat. Now as I exhale, I'm going to stand into my feet. As I do, my bum starts to lift up. I'm going to keep pushing into my feet and let my hips float up into the sky. Now when I let my hips go up, I'm going to send my knees a little bit more forward so I can open my hip flexors just that little bit more. I'm going to take a big inhale at the top, and as I exhale, I'm going to roll down. Now I'm going to peel down through my ribs, going to peel down my mid back, going to peel down my low back, and finally my tailbone. When I get to the bottom, I'm going to roll my hips forward, create an arch in my low back. Then I'm going to roll my hips back, pinning my low back, and I'm going to do it again. Stand into my feet and roll up. This is your shoulder bridge. Now if anyone has any lower back difficulties or injuries, you don't have to go too high in this exercise. Just roll up where it feels good and comfortable for you, and then roll back down. We're going to keep moving through this. You want to peel up just as gently as you peel down. So on the way up, I'm trying to roll up really, really slowly for my low back, my mid back, my ribs. I'm rolling down my ribs, my mid back, my low back, my tailbone. I always do a little rock forward and rock back at the bottom just to make sure my hips are in the right position, and I'm going to float up. Now the next thing I want you to focus on as you're rolling up and down is that both hip bones are going up level. Now, if you're not sure, you could have a glance towards your hip bones, or you could even pop your fingertips onto your hip bones. If you feel or see that one is lower than the other, stand a little bit more into that foot if it's lower, and that will raise it up. We want both hips to lift together. We want everything to be balanced. I always inhale at the bottom, exhale as I roll up, inhale at the top, and exhale as I roll down. We're going to go for 3 more. Connecting with every disc of the spine on the way down, keeping my hips as balanced as I can. Every disc of the spine on the way up, and still trying to keep those hips balanced. Now, when you get to the top of your bridge, you don't have to squeeze your bum, just try and keep it relaxed. The backs of your thighs can actually do a little bit more work. You're strengthening all of your posterior chain in this movement, so right from the back of your knees up to your shoulders is being strengthened in this movement. So we don't want to squeeze our bum, because then we just put a lot of force into the low back, and we want it to be balanced throughout the whole of our posterior chain. Now on your next one, I want you to go to the top and hold it up there. Now this time, without moving your hips left or right, I want you to close your eyes and just focus on peeling down on the left side of your spine. So I'm going to feel the left side of my ribs come down, left side of my mid back, left side of my low back, and the left side of my bum. I'm going to turn over to the right, and I'm going to float up on the right side, lifting my right side of my bum first, low back, mid back, ribs, and to the top. Then I'm going to come down on the left. And all we're doing is massaging the spine and feeling the difference between the left side and the right. Now I'm going to focus on coming down on the right side of my spine and coming up on the left. We'll go for 2 more. And then when you're ready, going for your last one. When you've finished, find the balance through center, roll your hips forward, roll your hips back, peel to the top, hold it there. Now from here, we're going to put all of our weight and focus into our left leg. Just float your right leg into a move we call tabletop, which is just knee over the hip, shin in line with your mat, and then place the right foot down, transfer the weight into the right foot, left foot comes up. Now your goal here when you lift the leg up is to keep your hips balanced. So that leg that comes up, you'll have to feel your thigh bone reaching up and out of the hip socket. Pop the foot down, transfer the weight, and the opposite leg comes up. Again, feel the thigh bone lift a little higher, keep the hips balanced, pop the foot down, and transfer the weight. Just go for 3 more. For 2, try and keep the hips up. Last one, left leg comes up, hold it there. Hips are balanced. I'm making sure my left thigh bone is reaching a little higher out of the hip socket to make sure I have that balance. Keeping my hips as steady as can be, as balanced as can be. Both hip bones drop an inch, both hip bones lift an inch. Both hip bones drop and lift. We're just going for 6 and 5. Keep pressing into your right foot. And 4 and 3 and 2, and last 1. Hold the hips up, place that left foot down, transfer all the weight into that left foot, spread the toes, give yourself loads of balance and support. Right foot floats up. Make sure the hips are balanced. If you're not sure, pop your hands on your hip bones, be 100% sure. Right thigh bone is lifting out of the hip socket. When you're ready, both hips drop, both hips lift. Make sure you're breathing here. I inhale as I drop and exhale as I lift. You've got another 5, and 4, and 3, and 2, and last 1. Place that foot down. Balance the weight between both feet now. Big inhale, exhale, roll down. Once your bum is planted, bring your knees in towards your chest and give yourself a little baby rock from side to side. Now from here, just take your feet nice and wide. So I'd go as wide as your mat, or if you don't have a mat, go a little bit wider than your shoulders. Point your big toes out and open your hands out left and right, palms up towards the ceiling or towards the sky. From here, I'm going to let both knees fall towards my right, and I'm going to look to my left. I should feel a really big stretch in my hips all the way through my spine. Inhale, bring your knees to center, and exhale, drop to the opposite side. Always look in the opposite direction to what your knees are falling. And if you imagine that your body was like a wet cloth and we're trying to wring you out. So that's what we're doing with your spine right now. We're just easing the spine out and stretching through the hips. Inhale to center. Exhale to change. And then one more time on the other side. Big inhale to center and exhale to change. Bring your knees to center now and bring your feet side by side. Take your hands down, roll the shoulders back, and again just let your shoulders and chest melt into the mat. I'm going to bring my right leg into tabletop, so I just have my knee over my hip, shin in line with my mat, and my toes pointed forward. And I'm going to bring my left leg into tabletop. I'm going to stick my knees together to keep my inner thighs nice and active. They're going to stay together. Now open your arms out left and right, palms facing up. If you feel your shoulders are crunching forward or reaching up towards your ears, just relax them down. Send your shoulders down your back and really release. Take a few deep breaths here. If you struggle to have your legs up on tabletop, your knees can come in towards your chest a little bit more. That'll take the pressure off your hip flexors. If you feel good, knees over the hips there. If you're struggling with the feet up at this height, feet down towards your bum. So you have your modifications there. Now keeping my shoulders on the mat and using my core as much as I can, I'm going to start to move my knees towards the right. Both knees are falling towards the right. Now I'm not just dropping my knees to the right, I'm feeling a twist in my core. We have lovely muscles all down the sides of our core. They're called our obliques, and they really have to work here. Big inhale as you go to the side. Now you want to exhale, use your core, draw from your core to bring those knees back to center. Once you're in center, take another inhale and exhale. And when you're ready, we're going to go to the left. Both knees moving. You will feel one hip bone lift, one hip bone drop. You should feel your core start to stretch. When you're ready, exhale, bring those knees back to center. 2 more times, both sides. I inhale as I drop. I exhale, use your core. So you should really feel from the sides of your core is what's drawing your legs back up. So it's not just me throwing my legs side to side. I'm using all the muscles in the sides of my core to strengthen through the pelvis, the hips in this movement. 1 more each side. Inhale to the right. Exhale as you draw back in. Remember, you can always bring your knees into your chest and your feet towards your bum if you need to modify, if it's getting too much on the hips. Inhaling to the side, keep the shoulders down, exhaling to center. Bring your knees in towards your chest and give yourself a little baby rock side to side. Now from here, lower yourself back down. Lengthen your legs straight out. Now we're going to put our hand on our left hip bone and we're going to bring our right leg into tabletop. Now we're going to do a move called leg circles. Anyone who's done this before can do this with a straight leg toe pointed, otherwise tabletop is fine. Whenever we do leg circles, all you're doing is mobilizing your thigh bone in your hip socket. So I really want you to focus on whether your leg is tabletop or straight. It's your thigh bone moving in your hip. That's all we're thinking about. I'm going to keep my left hip steady as I do. I'm going to bring my right thigh towards me, out to the side, around to the front, across the left, and back to center. Now I always like to inhale at the start, exhale as I do the biggest part of my circle, with an inhale as I come back to center. Now you can do a really, really small circle, or you can do a really big one. But just make sure as much as the thigh bone comes towards your face that it moves forward. As much as it goes to the left, it goes to the right. The reason we want to keep our left hip bone steady as you're moving your right leg is because this is a mobility movement. And whenever you're doing a mobility movement, you need stability. Mobility and stability go hand in hand. So while we mobilize on the right, we have to keep that left hip steady to get the most out of the exercise. Now after that next one, you'll reverse it. Go to the left first, go forward, go out to the right and around. And if you're doing this and it feels really, really good, the hips feel great, the movement in the leg feels great, you could challenge yourself and try with that straight leg. You could always try going a little bit wider. You could always pick up the pace ever so slightly, but you never want to do anything too fast in Pilates. Just a very slight increase in pace will add to the challenge. Go for another 2. And then the last one. You can place that foot down, lengthen that leg out, and then place your hand on the right hip instead. Left leg comes up to tabletop. If you're really starting to feel pressure in the hips, just start with the knee a little further back. That's just going to mean you're taking the pressure off the hips right from the get-go. If you're feeling good, knee stays over the hip, and if you're feeling great, straight leg. I'm going to stay with tabletop for today. Again, remember, you're focusing on the movement of your thigh bone. My right hip bone is going to stay steady now. So I always keep my hand on the hip. I'm trying to stay steady to remind myself it's not supposed to be moving or shaking. When you're ready then, thigh bone comes towards you, out to the side, around to the front, and out across the opposite side. Now find your breath. I'm only recommending a breath in class, and that's all I'll ever do. So I'll recommend the breath that will work for most people, which would be exhaling on the hardest part of the movement, so your core can tighten and help you, and inhaling on the easier part, so you can get some recovery. Get that lovely oxygenated air in. Now, if that doesn't work for you, try the breath the other way. Everyone's body is different, so you might find different parts of the movement harder than others, and I would recommend exhale on that part. But test it out and see what breath works best for your body. 2 more in this direction. Remember, if you're feeling good, you can always switch to straight leg here. And then when you're ready, we'll reverse it. Bring the knee towards the right first, forward, out across and back. Once you're in the rhythm of the movement, focus in on your breath. Think about your thigh bone just rolling around in your hip socket. That's all it's doing. And we'll go for 3, 4, 2, and last one. When you've finished, both knees in towards the chest and a little baby rock from side to side. Now from here, I'm going to keep one knee bent and I'm going to rock myself up to sitting. Now we're going to come into a prone position, so we're going to lie down on our bellies on the mat and cross one hand over the other. Now what you want to do from here is rest your head down onto your hands. Now you really want to feel your forearms connecting with the mat or the ground, so really press down and feel that connection there. From here, I want you to imagine that you have little ping pong balls under your eyelashes. And what you're going to do is roll the ping pong balls forward. Just lift your head up, lift your gaze. Now roll the ping pong balls back down. And again, rolling the ping pong balls forward just with your eyelashes, so it's a real gentle movement, and roll back down. Now what we're doing from here is lifting our head right from where your cervical spine meets your thoracic spine. There's a lovely junction there. And we're not doing any crazy big lift that will put any strain in our neck. Still feeling your forearms connected with that mat. You might like to exhale as you roll the ping pong balls forward and inhale as you roll them back. Just one more. And rest your head down. Take your hands now either side of your chest. When you do, you don't need to lift your elbows up or pin them back together. Just let your elbows stay where they naturally move. So just where they naturally sit when your hands are either side of your chest. Your head is down. And now this time, as you roll the ping pong balls forward, imagine your elbows moving down to the mat. So I'm going to roll the ping pong ball forward, elbows go down to the mat, and then I'm going to roll the ping pong balls down, let my elbows lift back up. And again, rocking the head up, elbows drop, and then releasing back. It's a very gentle movement, but it's just to make sure when we move into extension that we don't get any strain in the head, neck or shoulders, particularly if you're carrying any tension there. Last one. Now we're going to put all of those movements together to come into a full swan. So this time I'm going to roll the ping pong balls forward, drop my elbows down and extend my arms. Lift my chest. You can keep your hips close to the mat. I'm going to bend my elbows. They're going to start to lift up as I lower and bring the ping pong balls down. Again, I'm going to roll through with those ping pong balls, elbows drop and extend. Open out your collarbone at the top, and then I'm going to lower down. And again. Once that starts to feel good, you can put it together for a little bit more fluid movement. Just go for 3 more here. Generally, people will find extension quite challenging, so don't panic if you do, especially if you're someone who sits at a desk for work, or if you're on your phone a lot or watching the TV. we're kind of in a hunch forward position, so we don't really open our chest or lift our heart up. So this can be quite challenging, so don't panic if it is. Just move at your own pace. Last one, we're going to hold at the top. Open out your collarbone, roll the shoulders down your back. Lift your gaze and breathe. We have 8 seconds. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Release and rest. Take a few deep breaths. Now from here, we're going to come up onto our elbows. I'm going to have my hands in fists. You could have your hands flat, whatever works best for you. And what I'm going to do is switch on the muscles in my legs. So I'm going to squeeze my thigh bones, I'm going to squeeze my bum, and I'm going to point my toes. So my legs are nice and active, okay? So your feet might actually lift off your mat or the ground when you do this. Keeping my hands down on the mat so I have nice base here, I'm going to bend my right knee, bring my heel to my bum. 1, 2. Now using my hip, I'm going to lift that knee. Drop the knee down, lower the leg. The foot does not rest down on the ground, that leg stays active. Left foot, I'm going to pump. 1, 2. Now from my hip, I'm going to lift, drop and down. It might be a small movement depending on how much mobility you have in the hips or strength you have in the hips. Just keep the legs active and do what you can. Pump to the bum, pump to the bum. Lift, drop, release. Pump, pump and lift. Legs stay active all the time. We're going to do 3 more each side. You should really feel your hips working here, right across the front of the hips. Use your breath. Exhale on the hardest part of the movement. Just 1 more each side. And last one. And rest. Take one hand over the other and just rest your head down. Take a few deep breaths. You can relax the legs. Now from here, bring your hands just in front of your chest and curl your toes under. You're going to bring yourself up onto your knees. Bring the knees forward so that they're under your hips and your hands are just ever so slightly forward of your shoulders. We never want to have the wrists directly under the shoulders because we'll put all the weight down on the wrists then and create too much pressure. So always wrists ever so slightly forward. Knees under the hips. And then from here, I'm going to take an inhale, tuck my chin in, round out my upper spine, look towards my belly button. I'm going to tuck my tail under. As I release, I'm going to lift my gaze, open my collarbone, lift my heart, and open out my bum to the wall behind. Then again, tuck your bum under, scoop up, look at your belly button, and then release all the way out. We'll go for another 3 like this. And 2. And last one. And then we're going to bring ourselves around to center for a final movement. So our final exercise today is going to be mermaid. Now you're going to bring yourself into a sitting position just like this. So cross one foot over the other. If it's too much for your hips, just have one foot tucked in and have the hip that's maybe tight or stiff, have that leg straight out, okay? So that's just going to save the hip a little bit, but do have one foot tucked in, okay? Otherwise we have both feet tucked in just like this. Roll the shoulders back. I'm going to take my left hand down to the side of my left hip and I'm going to reach my right arm up and over. Now when I reach that right arm up and over, I'm going to send my ribs out to that right side. I want my ribs and hips on the left side to come close together. I want to release the space between my shoulders and the ears. Inhale, that right arm draws a rainbow in the sky, drops down to the right hip, left arm comes up and over. Create the space between my shoulders and the ears. Ribs move out to the left, ribs and hips together on the right. Hold it there, feel that stretch. And then again, draw the rainbow with the left hand. Right arm comes up and over. And then just move from left to right in your own time. Feeling that difference between left and right, feeling that stretch. If you can, every time go a little bit further over with that stretch. Create a bit of space between your ribs and hips on that side that you're stretching every time. Whenever you increase the stretch, make sure that the shoulders aren't creepy up to the ears. We'll go for 3 more. 2. Try to keep your bum cheeks down on the mat. And then let's go for the last one. Bring yourself to center, roll the shoulders back. I'm going to take my left hand over to the right side. I'm going to take my right hand behind my right hip, and I'm going to lift my chest, twisting towards the right. I'm going to try and open out my collarbone to that side, lift my gaze. Bring myself to center, and I'm going to go to the opposite side. Hand behind the hip to the back, hand just mid-thigh to the front, and I'm going to rotate. Chest opens, collarbone opens, and lift the gaze. One more time to the right. And then last time. Bring yourself to center now. You could take your hands on your knees, roll your shoulders back, and roll your shoulders forward. Take a big inhale, reach your arms up. Exhale out and around. And last big breath up and out. And you're all done. Well done.